Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host Alex, and with me I have Dan. How are you, Dan?
Look, I'm not too bad. Being sports meant that I didn't have to get up at 1 a.m. to watch that. I watched it a little bit delayed, but what was a I watched what was a reasonable performance, disappointing result, but I think a vast improvement on the Norwich game a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. We were just discussing before the episode in terms of the perspective of, it being one bad performance in 5 now, potentially with that Norwich performance. And I was sort of thinking about how even against Cardiff and QPR in despite those being wins, there being maybe more red flags or more concerns out of those games than this morning for me. Like, I actually thought this morning was one of our better performances of the season, arguably. Taking into account, of course, like acknowledging no shots on target's probably a big concern. But yeah, I completely agree with you. I actually thought it was quite a positive performance.
Yeah, I think I guess like the first 5 games of the season where we collected 2 points or something looked pretty dire. And then I guess this last sort of 5 games, I think it's just seen generally a bit of progression, a bit of progress with the system where we got those 3 wins. As you say, they weren't necessarily the best performances. We were conceding lots of chances, but found a way to score the goals and get the wins. Norwich kind of, not necessarily the exception. I think it was the trend of those 4 games where we were conceding lots of chances and we kind of knew against a better opposition that we were going to get punished, and we came up against Norwich, who were a better opposition, and we got punished. I think what's been pleasing is that sort of between each international break, those little sections, there's been things that we've needed to work on, and it seems like it appears that they're working on them, and that like we come back each international break and we're a little bit better. This morning, I think one of those main things has been about stopping or the ability to stop other teams creating so many chances and having so many shots, and sort of locking down around our own 18-yard box. And I think this morning, like Sunderland, and they had 2 shots on target or something from a grand total of, might have been 9 shots against a team that's now top of the league, that's playing very good football. I think is a really good improvement defensively against or compared to the last few, the previous few games. I guess it's sort of one of those, that balance, right? We certainly didn't go ultra defensive. We certainly still played very expensive, tried to attack quite frequently. But I think the counter, or like the balance, was we sort of went really defensive and we stifled Sunderland a lot, but it meant we weren't getting as forward with as many numbers. We weren't creating as many clear-cut chances as we had in some of the other games. But in saying that, I thought this really was a game of 2 halves. I thought Sunderland came out the first half and were really, really dominant in control, and put us under some early pressure. Their high press really causing us some problems. A couple of speculative passes at best, some shaky passes from like Hughes and Drame trying to break that press, which really gave Sunderland the ball back really quickly. But I think whatever Walter said at halftime certainly seemed to work. We came out a much more aggressive, much better sort of side, and we looked to really dominate and control in the second half. And there's the Bedia shot which hits the bar. I think Malumi has a cross come shot which has to get tipped wide, or like Patterson gets a hand on. I don't know whether he actually tips it wide or it's already going wide, but there's a couple of sort of half chances, plus obviously the good one, the big one that hits the crossbar, and it kind of was really a game of fine margins, which I guess like shows, I think, how far we are progressing overall. When you go, well, there's not that long ago we scraped by, we managed to beat a team at the bottom of the league, and now we're competing, for taking Sunderland, the whole 90 minutes plus, where they've been pretty ruthless themselves this season. So
yeah, absolutely, and I think that's a good sign of improvement. I do think like we've sort of almost corrected too much in terms of being slightly more defensive. I think people would sort of point to the fact that we had no shots or maybe one shot on target for the game, being a concern. But then I look at, for example, Bedia up forward, I thought was terrific. I thought that was just about his best game of the season for us, just in terms of his ball retention and his, I think he had one or two instances where he tried to sort of dribble with the ball or run with the ball at feet and sort of lost possession. But he looked like he was someone, trying to turn and make things happen and ask questions of the defenders, which was really good to see. I thought Hughes was terrific. Like, I think, he was probably a little bit rusty at times in that first half, but some of his tackling and composure on the ball to sort of win the ball back was brilliant.
I think there's a moment, but on Hughes in this, I think it's in the second half where he tracks back, wins the challenge, gets up, and then wins the second challenge as one of the Sunderland boys midfielders is running through to clean that up again, and I think wins the free kick from that second challenge again. So he was on a really grew into the game as a bit shaky, but I think by the end of the 90 minutes could certainly stand head held high.
Yeah, and Puerta probably another one who, first minutes, in fact, I think for him, outside of that friendly in Turkey, another one who probably grew into the game a bit as it went on. Like, there was a few opportunities I thought where we were essentially on the counter attack, where we were able to sort of break through that Sunderland press and get balls out to Kamara and Badir on the wings. Kamara, probably the biggest disappointment for me in the game. I'm interested in your thoughts on him so far. I could be wrong. Was it a $4.5 million fee for him in the end? I kind of lost track of, between him and Ballumi, how much we paid for each of them. But it just feels as if, for the outlay, for the hype, for the expectation, he's the same age that Philogene was when he arrived last year. And I'm not expecting him to walk away with sort of 10 goals and 8 assists sort of thing like Philogene did, but he just whether it's the limited minutes and the lack of confidence, I'm not too sure, but it's just when he's playing, it sounds really harsh to say he's more Ebioe than Philogene so far to me. Like, there's something about, like, he's got that sort of lackadaisical movement, which I think when he's not producing any end product does come across as a little bit lazy or a bit tentative. Like, he had one passage where he really put on a burst of pace and got forward and looked really good. But outside of that, I'm struggling to see it with him a bit at the moment.
Yeah, I think he certainly didn't have a great game. I don't think he was particularly poor. He was okay. He had some good moments, some bad, some poor moments. But I think couple of things. Over the last month or so, Ballumi has become a really strong outlet for us, and I think we're certainly trending towards, like, most of our counters going down that side. And I think, like, you look at the contrast, someone who's a winger who's found form and is playing with a lot of confidence versus someone who's not. I guess the other thing is on that side, particularly where, not maybe directly, but subconsciously, I think a lot we're comparing, like, when Miller comes on, we know like he's very bright and energetic, and it's kind of that comparison that we're making. I think Kamara will look. You're right. There's for the potential, the outlay that we've made. I think we certainly do expect more from him. But I think he's had 3 appearances, and this is his first start. Maybe
second start, I think. Was it Stoke? There was one he came off at halftime, or was it Sheffield United? I think he came off at halftime.
Yeah, it was probably. Who did we play after the last international break? Because that'd be my best guess. Because it seems to be.
I think that was Sheffield United. Yeah,
resting some of those the travellers. So that's like why Miller didn't start last time or this morning, because he's just been travelling around for internationals. But so a couple. He's played. This season, out of 10 games, he's played 200,
call it 3.
200 minutes or something. Like, it's so. I think there's still room for him to grow, but I think he's certainly not the preferred option for starting there.
Yeah, and I guess that's look. I'm certainly not writing him off at this stage. It's just comparing him, for example, to like a Badia or a Balumi or even like a Puerta Zambrano, like these guys who've also they're working their way into the team, but they just seem to have a bit more about them where you go, okay, I can kind of see what they're offering. Whereas Kamara, he gets into good positions and then it seems as if and look, it could absolutely be the nerves, it could be the pressure, everything that comes with a big price tag, and then not getting that many opportunities is he feels like he needs to take them. And it seems as if at the moment, at least, whenever he has to make a decision on does he take a shot or does he cross it, he's sort of making the wrong one. And all he needs maybe is a goal to go in. Like, he got really unlucky, the Pedro goal being ruled out would have been an assist for him. He just needs something like that to go his way, and that might give him the confidence to try something the next time. So certainly not writing him off. It's just he's probably been one of the more disappointing signings so far this season. So we'll see how that one pans out. I gave a little smile before when you were talking about the fact that each international break we're sort of learning from our mistakes and we're developing and we're becoming a better team. Because I thought I do agree we are learning from mistakes, but one mistake that we seem to keep making is conceding from our short corners. This time sort of ably assisted by the referee being in probably the worst possible position. So I guess there's two elements to talk about this too. First of all, I suppose the referee and his positioning. He was caught, I think, 3 or 4 times during the game. Really, like I noticed in the first half, getting in the way of a Sunderland player, and then again after this incident as well, where he actually had to give a drop ball for Sunderland because he got in the way. I really don't buy into. There's a lot of Twitter discourse and other social media discourse where people go on about referees being corrupt and bent and all those sort of things, which is complete rubbish. I think referees are human. Players are human. Players make mistakes. Referees make mistakes. Like, it's part and parcel of it. But I think when it's just the same mistake repeatedly in a game, I think it is worthy of criticism, or at least being quite disappointed. And I think Volzer actually was really spot on post-match when he said, if he's reviewed our matches or prepared for our matches, he knows that we play a lot of short corners and he should be positioning himself in a way as to not, impede those opportunities, which I think is actually a really good way of expressing it, which I think is a perfectly valid way of expressing it. So yeah, I guess what are your thoughts on that whole situation, both from the way we set up and also from the referee, I suppose?
Yeah, look, I guess the main thing is that's 3 or 4 goals directly that we've conceded from short corners, which is a concern. It's like how you go from an attacking position and you give up the ball, regardless of whether the ref's in the way or not. If you concede, an attacking chance, you concede, and we're not set up to, like, even prepared for that at all, that we don't win the ball in the box or whatever, that someone can basically run the length of the field or run half the field and basically be one-on-one with our keeper. In this instance, like 2-on-1 because Drama got back there, but like I think that's probably that's a bigger concern for me than the positioning of the ref.
Yeah,
I think you're like it's a fair comment. He, like, that he got in the way like a few times, and if you're sort of interrupting play 2 or 3 times in a game as a referee, when most games it probably doesn't happen at all, then it's probably worth going, okay, well, like, where should I have been? Like, where should I? And probably like just even, but I don't think it needs to be a big song and dance. Just a reflection from Madley himself. Just go, okay, well, I probably wasn't in the right spot here. So, and as long as in theory, he improves for next time, because he's just like, they're the same as like with players, like we're making predictions about plays, about what's going to happen, and sometimes they get it right and sometimes they get it wrong. As you say, we're all human. We're just trying to be involved in the game that we all love in whatever capacity. So like yes, it's frustrating from a fan's perspective in any given moment when the ref gets in the way, but like I feel like there are bigger fish to fry with us at the moment than that. And the other thing is, like, as much as they're certainly not corrupt, but you also don't want to make an enemy of the referees and as soon as you start going out and throwing accusations that they're not doing their job effectively, or that they're doing anything unseemly, then I think not even intentionally, but some calls are just going to start going against you. And I think you just got to let some things go. I think the game's done. Two of our staff, I think, got yellows for
So I was going to say,
with
Volta gets a touchline ban now. I think that's his third yellow of the season.
I think I saw that. I don't know. He obviously had something to say at the end of the game to the refs, and copped a yellow for it. But yeah, look.
But I think you're completely right. Like, Volta just needs to look at himself, that you can criticize the ref all you want for his positioning. But if we have, Hughes standing on the halfway line, that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Or doesn't, anyone standing on the halfway line. And that doesn't happen. Whoever's the shortest on the pitch, go and stand at the halfway line. You're not going to win a header in the box.
Coyle or Drame should be on the halfway line, because they're quick, they can get back to cover, but they're not going to offer much threat in the box.
So I think that's probably certainly a key thing that we still need to work on. And I guess, I know we play lots of, I just wish we'd shake them up a bit more. It seems like we just go short corner, short corner, short corner, short corner, short corner, short corner, short corner. And it would just be really good if we just, a couple of short corners, they haven't quite worked. All right, let's just whip one in, just mix it up a little bit.
There was one that was it. Balumi took a corner which wasn't short, and it wasn't a long corner. It was, I can't even remember. It just went diagonally back. I can't even describe it now, but it was like a really strange corner. It was clearly just like a mishit, but I was just like, I don't know, our set piece routine.
Yeah,
and I just remember
set pieces are probably our weakest area at the moment.
Which is crazy, because
if we got a free kick on the edge of the box, I'd go, we're probably not going to score this.
I saw someone joke that the best strategy against us is to just from kickoff just put it out for your concede a corner against us, because it'll suck all our players up the field and then you can counter on us. I'm like, look, it's not far off at the moment. It's funny because I remember one of Volta's first sessions, we saw all the photos of them out in Turkey just doing corner routines or crossing routines, and you're going, that seems to be our weakest point. So I don't really know what they were doing there. Handball just before halftime was probably the other interesting call to discuss. To be fair, watching it live or watching it, in the moment, I accept, you look at the replays, it's a very clear handball, but I'm not as outraged about that one, because I don't think in the moment the ref has a great view of it. I don't know if the linesman should be doing better with that one, but I'm not as, and especially because it wasn't a penalty. It could have been a red card, but I'm not as sort of up in arms about that one.
I think it's kind of one of those. It is certainly an awkward one. I reckon, as you say, hard for the ref to see that live from wherever he is. He's a 50-year-old man trying to chase down 21-year-old professional athletes. So he's certainly going to be behind the play a little bit. And I'm not sure exactly where he was. He could have been behind, with Puerta between him and that incident. And the way that it kind of is already it almost looks like it just goes over, it just goes over both of them and falls into Patterson's hands. So it's not like there's a really wicked deflection that makes it easy to spot. You're probably right. The linesman probably should be doing a better job to be closer to that to see and potentially flag. It's a handball for me, but I also, as I just said, if you give us a free kick there on the edge of the box, I guess the difference would be potentially it's a red card, but what are we going to do with it? Probably nothing anyway. So yeah, I don't know. It's one that went against us, but as always, swings and roundabouts. There'll be something that'll go for us in at some point.
And look, and I think as we both started by saying, this was actually a reasonably positive display. I think, if we'd managed to find the back of the net, if Badia's shot goes in, it's a whole different game. They've been top of the table for a little while now, or they've been around about top of the table a little while now. So the fact that we're now getting frustrated at not winning against the teams in that region of the table makes a whole difference. We'll talk in a little bit. We'll preview the games to come, and we've got Derby next weekend, and we're starting to get into this run of 3 games against promoted clubs. I think that's probably the run of games for me where I'll judge the team a bit more harshly. But we'll see how we are coming at the other side of those games. But I'll get your votes for this one.
All right. I'm going to go 3 points to Puerta because I thought he had really, really solid first minutes in the championship. To come in and to perform like that and be influential in the game in an important position in a new team in a new country and all that, where's his time to gel? He just he was just a really, really important figure for us while he was on the pitch. I'm going to go 2 points to Balumi because I thought, again, he probably was our most dangerous attacking outlet down the right-hand side. And I will go 1 point. I'm really not sure. I'm torn between a few options here. I might go to Hughes for, I think, built into the game, and particularly that double challenge in the second half was really, really impressive. So.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I've gone Hughes for the 3. Yeah, I thought he was terrific. I mean, we've sort of been anticipating him for a little while since he was first linked to the club, and we saw some of those highlight packages, and I think he's already showing, once he's got that confidence and I guess experience playing alongside Jones in that defence, he'll just keep coming on in leaps and bounds, I think. I went 2 votes for Badia. I thought, like I said before, I think probably his best game for us, even though he didn't get the goal to reward him for that performance. I thought his hold-up play and his ability to sort of link up, like he had a few really good 1-2s with Balumi on that right-hand side where he was, creating a lot of space for opportunities, which was really good to see from him. And then, Puerta for the 1, I thought, like he had a really good display. It's interesting. I mean, we've got so many central midfielders, and I feel like we play a different 3 each game. But I think we're slowly coming to a point, especially unfortunately with Alzate now out injured, about whether Volta can sort of nail down the 3 that he actually wants to start the game, whether it could be Puerta, Zambrano, and Ermer when he's fit, or maybe a Palmer, as that attacking one of the 3. But that certainly looks a promising combination to me. Cool. Okay. Well, just before we preview games to come, there was obviously a little bit of news late last week in the form of Tan Kesler leaving the club. A few different rumours and innuendos floating around online about it, but the facts are, like, it was a very sudden departure. There wasn't a whole lot in the press before that to indicate any sort of issues. I think he actually gave an interview while they were out in Turkey, just sort of chatting away about, the plans and everything else like usual. So clearly there must have been something reasonably sudden about it. What was your sort of reaction to it, and what do you see as, I guess, the way forward for the club at the back of it?
Look, I think it caught me off guard, certainly, because as you say, it's not like there was rumblings of disharmony or of anything coming. There was a club announcement, and that Tan Kesler had parted ways by mutual consent, which
I feel like everything's mutual consent these days.
Yeah, it's that like sort of legalese of to say he got sacked basically. Which he got sacked, but they agreed to pay out his contract or like something.
He
got his severance package. I don't know. I think it's disappointing. I think he's done a good job for the most part in his role. I guess probably the biggest or the point of most frustration was in that period where Ajun was working with the Fenerbahce board, and it seemed like nothing was happening, that Tan couldn't quite get stuff done and get stuff over the line, and then Ajun came back, and deals were getting signed left, right, and center. So I think that was probably the biggest frustration regarding Tan, but I don't know. I guess like now we just have to. I don't think we need to rush. Like, I mean, we obviously need to get someone in place, but I don't think we need to just rush out and get anyone. I think we need to take our time, go through the process, find the right person, and I don't know. And before I guess realistically we've got till we've got a couple of months before it
Yeah.
becomes like something that we need to have really sorted out. Like as long as they're in sort of December, gives them time to sort of settle in, and then if they've got to do any, like January is a pretty important month potentially for us. So sort of I don't know.
I was thinking, I
Oh,
was like, yeah, there's not really anything important until the transfer window. I guess if Volta doesn't do too well over the next, say, 5 games, there might be a few important decisions to make. But I think I think ultimately you're right. Like, there's not any real rush to replace him before then. The only other one I was thinking of in terms of reasons for his departure, like you sort of touched on the transfer window, is also maybe the dealings with the council over the fairground and the. Was it the training? I keep forgetting if it's the training facility or the academy setup. I know they wanted to move one of those to the fairground. That's probably the only other one I can think that's sort of dragging on without much resolution. That might have been frustrating Ajun, but it'll be interesting to see what he does. I can't help but think back to.
I guess we're probably waiting until the next Q&A session for someone to say what actually happened with Tan till we get proper
and then Ajun will
answer.
just off the cuff just give this, really his lawyers will be getting a bit twitchy about what he says. But no, I was thinking, was it I don't know, some event where Tan was saying, we want to show the EFL that we're not just a bunch of a pair of crazy Turks, and now he's gone, and I'm like, oh well, it's not really helping the picture in that sense, but it's a surprising one, and obviously he's left his role on the EFL board as well, which for a little while there we were thinking might be doing us a favor having someone on the inside, but we shall see what happens. Okay, well, we'll talk Burnley now because we've got Burnley Thursday morning. Thankfully, I think that's like 6 a.m. Australian time, which is a bit more palatable than the 4:45 or 5 a.m. starts we were getting. Scott Parker in charge there since Company went over to Bayern Munich in the summer, which of manager leaving Burnley for Bayern Munich, very standard sort of move that you would make. But yeah, 3 wins in their last 5, sitting second in the table. I'd actually missed that they'd moved all the way up to second. So playing first and second back to back certainly is an interesting pair of fixtures. But I mean, Burnley, they're not sort of purring along as much as they were under Company. Like, they're sort of struggling through matches up to an extent. Like, I think they had they beat Leeds a little while ago, but it was very much, funnily enough, I think the goal they scored against Leeds was sort of our typical goal. I think Leeds had a corner and Burnley sort of went up the other end and scored. So I certainly hope we're not going to be the victims of that again in this one. But I guess the point I'm making is that they're not as invincible or as dominant as they seemed to be 2 seasons ago when they won 3-1 at the MKM. So feeling a slightly more optimistic about this one, and I guess off the back of that Sunderland performance, feeling like we have a bit of defensive integrity now with Hughes and Jones back there. But this isn't the game. Like, of these 2 games, this certainly isn't the one I'm targeting for a result.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good challenge. I guess the thing is, how the players back up after, as we said, was a reasonable, a good performance against Sunderland, a top team, but to walk away from that having put in a solid performance and still walking away with nothing. I guess this is a real mentality test to see, can we go into another really tough game, one that we're not favourites to win, and back up that performance. And again, this is probably I feel like we're not at a point where we need to take points from this, but certainly I'd like to take points from it. But I wouldn't be disappointed if this was another, if we lost 1-0 or something again, and we had a really solid account of ourselves against one of the promotion favourites. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I think probably
it's almost like a free hit in that sense.
Yeah, I think we'll see a few changes again. There's been lots of rotation this season, and especially I'd expect to see Miller start, and then probably changes in the midfield again. Probably Zambrano will probably start. That's
Will
probably the
we
main
ever
one.
have an unchanged side?
No. I reckon when we're going to, then there'll be like an injury or something. And then it'll be a forced change. But like I can't really fault the like Panda's, solid again. Can't really fault the back line. Drama had some dicey moments, but I think also some really good moments defensively and offensively. There's a moment late in the second half where they're going for a high press. I mean, he gave away the foul, but they were up there trapping, trying to trap Sunderland on their corner flag. So there was some really impressive stuff. Yeah, midfield, I'd expect. I think Zambrano will start against Burnley. Malin will probably start.
Maybe
despite,
Palmer as a third.
Palmer or Slater.
I'm just wondering
I
if
think Slater's been coming on and being quite effective. I think he's sort of, as he tends to do, I think he's worked his way into Walter's favour again. It feels like at the beginning of the season he was one where Walter was like, "No, nah, I don't rate you." But I think he's infectious, and he just.
I feel like the problem for Slater though is his energy is good off the bench, because he seems to come on late in games and inject that energy, whereas when he starts, he doesn't seem to have as much impact often. So he's sort of stuck in this loop of he earns a start, doesn't perform well, gets dropped, comes off the bench, looks really good, so earns a start. He's almost just becoming the perfect super sub in that sense.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess it depends on how we want what that midfield three to look like. If we're going two behind, then certainly Zambrano and Slater, or Zambrano and Simons, because I thought he also had a reasonably solid game against Sunderland. He seems to be Simons is just ticking along when he plays. He's not
just there,
doing it.
yeah.
He's not poor. He's not going missing, but he's not outstanding. But he's just trying to do the basics and just get the ball and move it on and make some tackles. And
it feels like a lot of our centre mids are going to fall into that category purely because of the way we play. That you almost I was thinking this morning, both Simons and Mellum, for a lot of the game, I was like, I just didn't even notice that they were playing. And that's not through fault of their own. It was just the way that we were playing to the wings so much. You'd have Puerta sort of spraying passes, so he was kind of catching the eye. But other than him, you're kind of like, the central midfield just gets bypassed.
Yeah, it does a lot in our system. It is a bit of a flaw of the system. And I wish if we can work that out so that we actually, again, vary things up a little bit and we can get those midfields more involved and occasionally play it through the middle, then I think we'll suddenly become a really dangerous proposition as well. Because I think if we can feed Beattie the ball in a position where he only has to sort of hold off a single defender and then he can try and run away with it. I know he's not the best dribbler, but I think that's sort of where, almost those through balls off the shoulder of the defender, I think are where we're going to potentially, if you can release him in those sorts of positions, where he might actually sort of be able to become a little bit more effective as a goal threat. I think he's certainly trying. I just feel like with a lot of the interplay, and admittedly, you're right, he was better this morning, but he often seems like he's just half a step off. He's on his heels a little bit, and I don't know whether that is a language or a communication issue or what, but it seems like often there's a pass gets played into where he should be running across his defender and he's sort of he's on his heels and he's a half a step off getting there and winning that ball and then driving sort of into the box to take shots. So that's probably a thing that he needs to work on. But Balumi, Bedia, Miller to start, and then Zambrano come in, and maybe Palmer. I don't know. There's 8 million midfielders and only 3 spots to fill, so it's hard to.
Speaking of Bedia, the one point from the Sunderland game I hadn't mentioned, which has certainly earned my favour from Volta, is going to 2 up top towards the end of the game while we were chasing it. I was like, I can't remember the last time I saw two strikers on the pitch, and it was a very
Steve
strange
Bruce.
formation. Yeah, Steve Bruce, just throw the strikers on, right? It was certainly a throwback, so that was pretty cool to see. Yeah, I tend to agree with those changes. There's not too much I would change. Yeah, just Miller coming in on the left, and yeah, you're probably going to see. I don't know if Puerta's going to have the fitness to start 2 games in 3 days as he's easing in. So probably Zambrano to come in, and I don't know if Ermer's fit. So yeah, maybe a Miller, maybe a Palmer or a Slater coming into the midfield for Simons and Puerta. Maybe. I mean, Simons may well get another start. I like you. I didn't think he was too far off it. And yeah, probably just happy with it. If we have like a slim loss to Burnley, I think I'd be reasonably happy with that. But then Derby on the weekend is probably the big one. It's the start of a big 3 run of games against all 3 promoted clubs. Very strong at home, a Derby. So playing them over there is not going to be an easy fixture by any means. I think a lot of people look at these promoted clubs and sort of, almost pencil in the 3 points. I think Derby and Oxford are actually above us in the table. So it shows that they've had a reasonable start to the season. Jerry Yates up forward for them. They signed from, I think he was at Swansea last. Blackpool before that has been reasonable for them. And they've got a really good record against us. I think no matter what sort of form they're in and we're in, they always seem to beat us, other than that playoff semi-final back in 2016. We just don't seem to have much luck against them. But it'd be a good time to turn that around. And it's really, for all the platitudes that we can throw at the performance this morning against Sunderland, these are the games where you, just like with Stoke, Cardiff and QPR, these are the sorts of games where you go, well, we really do need to start churning out the wins here to really keep this, optimism and positivity or progress, I suppose, in Volta's style of play going.
Yeah, I think I was just looking at their fixture list, and our result, they've played a lot of the same teams that we have played, and their results are actually like mirrored almost exactly. Like they lost to not my score lines, but like they lost to Sheffield United, they lost to Norwich, they lost to Sunderland, they beat QPR, they beat Cardiff. Like
yeah, right. Okay.
Like just like it's actually really interesting to look. So I think it'll be a really good game. I think you're right. This is a game where we're targeting 3 points, and I think if you get the 3 points there, and then over the following couple of games you get, another 3 or 4 points, I think you put yourself, it becomes a successful little, section of the season again. We saw how, in the last that QPR Cardiff Stoke little section, how quickly you can move up the table and bridge some of those gaps if you just string some wins together. So I'd be looking to, same sort of thing, grab 7 points or something out of those sorts of 3 games, and then, hopefully jump up a couple more places, consolidate us or move ourselves further away from the bottom, be stable in that sort of like mid, upper mid sort of section of the table, and hopefully, I guess if you're there, it's sort of, you just got to get to about January and be there or thereabouts, be close enough that you can have a really strong second half of the season. And we know soon enough, we get to that Christmas period, there's games every like 2 days, and it's going to be crazy. So,
and we were sort of just joking about the size of our squad, but really, like that Christmas period could really be an advantage for us in that sense. The ability to rotate so heavily, but with a similar or a consistent level of quality in the squad, means that we might be able to churn out results where other teams sort of, struggle through.
Yeah, that's true. Particularly in that midfield, where lots of teams don't have the level of depth that we have there, but to be able to rotate, essentially go game for game and put a full new fresh trio of midfielders in and go, there's not a huge drop in quality between each sort of 3. I think will become a real asset in some of the fixture heavy sections of the season that are coming up. So, but that's a little ways down the track. But I'm confident looking at their sort of results, looking at us and our trajectory and our progression, I'm confident that we can get the 3 points against Derby.
Score prediction? Big win. You know, we with our wins, we tend to, you know, blow out the scoreline a little bit.
2-0. 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, if we're going to get a clean sheet, I think this is the sort of fixture to get it. I don't know if Derby are the biggest of goal scorers, so
Doesn't look like it.
Yeah, I'm sort of similarly confident in that we can get the win. You know, if we could snatch a draw against Burnley somehow and get a win in this, even talking about that sort of run of games of getting points and pulling up the table, all of a sudden that becomes a reality. You know, it's going to be interesting. I think this 3 games finally is going to go a long way to deciding a lot of the fan base's opinion of Volta, because we're now into that portion of the season where we've had the 10-game magical marker passed this morning against Sunderland, that people have been saying, you know, give him 10 games, give him 15 games sort of thing. Once we get through this batch of games, we'll be at that 14 or 15 game marker at the next international break. I think it'll be a good, you know, you're sort of a third of the way through the season. You get a good sense of how we're shaping up and where we're likely to finish the season. So it's certainly going to be interesting from that perspective. I think it's going to tell us a lot about how the season pans out. So very interested to see how that one goes. And we'll be back next week to talk all about it. So until then, thank you for joining me, Dan.
Not a problem.
And thanks everyone for listening in. Until next time, come on, City.